The morning sun cast long shadows across the Quantico rifle range when Staff Sergeant Kira, Nighthawk, Volkov emerged from the armory building, her arms loaded with fresh paper targets. The crack of precision rifles echoed through the Virginia air as Navy SEALs conducted their monthly qualifications. She moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had performed this mundane task hundreds of times, her combat boots crunching softly on the gravel path between firing positions. What happened next would become legend. At Position 7, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Tombstone, Hayes lowered his Mk-11 sniper rifle and studied his target through high-powered binoculars. His jaw tightened. After 3 magazines, his grouping looked like buckshot at 800 meters. The weapon that had never failed him in Fallujah, in the Hindu Kush, in classified operations across 3 continents, was betraying him when it mattered most. His annual evaluation depended on this score. Problem, Chief. Volkov's voice carried a slight Russian accent, inherited from grandparents who had fled the Soviet Union decades earlier. She set down her stack of targets and glanced toward his position. Hayes turned, his weathered face showing the strain of a career spent in the world's most dangerous places. Rifles shooting 4 inches low and 6 right. Can't figure why. His voice held the frustration of a perfectionist confronting failure. Volkov approached the firing line, her movements deliberate and respectful of range protocol. She wore standard BDUs with minimal insignia, wings that few recognized, ribbons that told stories most would never hear. Her auburn hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her green eyes held an analytical quality that seemed to catalog everything they saw. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the weapon. The question hung in the air like morning mist. Around them, other SEAL teams continued their qualifications, the rhythmic thunder of precision fire creating a backdrop of professional lethality. Hayes studied this Air Force logistics specialist who spent her days managing ammunition inventories and maintaining range equipment. In his world, reputation was earned in blood and verified by bodies. This woman was an unknown quantity. But something in her stance, the way she held herself with quiet confidence rather than deference, made him pause. 23 years in special operations had taught him to read people quickly and accurately. Volkov wasn't asking out of curiosity or misplaced helpfulness. She was asking because she knew something he didn't. Hayes glanced at his teammates, who had paused their own shooting to watch this unusual exchange. In the SEAL community, weapons were sacred, personal extensions of the warrior's will. Handing your rifle to a stranger was like lending your soul. Yet something made him step aside and extend the Mk-11 toward this enigmatic Air Force sergeant, whose presence on the range had always been peripheral, professional, and utterly unremarkable until this moment when everything changed forever. Volkov accepted the rifle with the reverence it deserved, her hands finding familiar purchase on the stock and grip. The weapon felt natural in her grasp, like greeting an old friend after years of separation. She examined the scope mounts, checking for loose screws or shifted rings that might explain the erratic performance. Her movements were methodical, professional, and completely without hesitation. "When did you last zero this?" she asked, settling into the prone position behind the rifle. "3 days ago," Hayes replied, crouching beside her. "Shot perfect groups then." Volkov adjusted the bipod legs and settled her cheek against the stock. Through the Leopold scope, the 800-meter target appeared crisp and clear. She studied the wind flags scattered across the range, noting the subtle shifts in direction and velocity that most shooters missed. The Virginia morning air held just enough humidity to affect bullet trajectory, and the crosswind from the east was gusting between 8 and 12 miles per hour. "Temperatures dropped 15 degrees since your zero session," she murmured, making minute adjustments to the scope's elevation turret. "Cold bore shot will impact different than a warm barrel." Hayes exchanged glances with his teammates. Technical knowledge was one thing. Any weapons maintenance specialist could recite ballistics data. But Volkov spoke with the confidence of experience, her hands moving across the rifle's controls with practiced familiarity that suggested far more than classroom theory. She chambered around and controlled her breathing, finding that natural respiratory pause that all precision shooters knew intimately. The world narrowed to the crosshairs, the target, and the mathematical certainty of physics applied through steel and lead. Her finger found the trigger's sweet spot, that precise point where the slightest additional pressure would release the firing pin. The rifle spoke once, its report sharp and authoritative across the range. Through binoculars, Hayes watched a perfect hole appear in the target's X-ring, dead center at 800 meters. The impossible accuracy that had eluded him all morning materialized instantly under Volkov's touch. "Jesus Christ," whispered Petty Officer Danny Shark Rodriguez from the adjacent firing position. His own qualification had been interrupted by this unprecedented display of marksmanship. Volkov worked the bolt smoothly, ejecting the spent brass and chambering a fresh round. She fired again without hesitation, the second shot joining the first in a group that could be covered by a quarter. A third shot expanded the group by mere millimeters. The range had fallen silent except for the whisper of wind through the tall grass beyond the targets. Other SEAL teams had ceased firing to witness this exhibition of skill that defied every assumption they had made about the quiet Air Force sergeant who managed their ammunition supplies. Hayes studied the woman beside him with new eyes. Her breathing remained controlled, her pulse steady, her entire demeanor suggesting that pinpoint accuracy at extreme range was as natural as walking. This wasn't beginner's luck or a fluke performance. This was mastery demonstrated with casual confidence. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" he asked quietly. Volkov safetied the rifle and handed it back with the same respectful ceremony with which she had received it. For a moment, something flickered across her features, a shadow of memories that belonged to different places, different times, different wars. "Range maintenance keeps you busy," she said simply, deflecting the question with the skill of someone accustomed to avoiding attention. Hayes wasn't satisfied with evasion. 23 years of special operations had taught him to recognize skill that transcended normal training parameters. What he had witnessed wasn't the product of weekend hobby shooting or basic military marksmanship courses. This was precision fire capability that belonged in the upper echelons of military sniping, demonstrated with an ease that suggested extensive combat experience. "That's not range maintenance," he pressed, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to extracting truth from reluctant sources. "That's advanced designated marksman training, probably scout sniper school, maybe something more classified." Around them, the morning qualification session had effectively ended as word spread through the SEAL teams about the logistics sergeant who could outshoot their best marksmen. Conversations stopped as operators gathered at respectful distances, their professional curiosity overriding normal training protocols. Volkov began collecting her scattered targets, her movements suggesting eagerness to escape the unwanted attention. But Hayes wasn't finished with this mystery. He had spent his career around the world's most elite warriors, and he recognized lethality regardless of the uniform that contained it. "Staff Sergeant Volkov," he said formally, using her rank and name in a way that demanded response rather than requested it. "I'm asking as a professional to a professional. Where did you acquire those skills?" She paused in her target collection, her back to him and the assembled SEALs who waited for an answer that might explain the impossible demonstration they had witnessed. When she turned, her expression had shifted subtly. The deferential logistics specialist had been replaced by something harder, more dangerous. "Afghanistan," she said simply. "Two tour, forward operating base Chapman, then some places that don't appear on maps." The name Chapman resonated through the group like a struck bell. Every special operations veteran knew that base, a CIA installation in the heart of Coast Province, where America's most sensitive counterterrorism operations originated. It was a place where conventional rules didn't apply and where survival depended on skills that couldn't be taught in any school. "What was your MOS?" Hayes asked, using the military occupational specialty code that would reveal her actual role rather than her current administrative position. Officially, 35S Signal Intelligence Analyst. Volkov's green eyes held a challenge. Unofficially, whatever the mission required. Signal intelligence was a broad classification that could cover everything from radio intercept to human intelligence operations. In places like Chapman, job descriptions became fluid, and survival often depended on capabilities that had nothing to do with original training. The best operators learned quickly or died quickly. Rodriguez stepped forward, his previous skepticism replaced by professional curiosity. "How many confirmed kills?" The question was asked with the respect one sniper showed another, a recognition of shared brotherhood. Volkov's expression closed like a door slamming shut. Some questions belonged to classified after-action reports and sleepless nights, not to casual conversation on a Virginia rifle range. Some numbers were carried privately, honored silently, and never spoken aloud. "Enough," she said quietly, and every veteran present understood that the conversation had reached its natural boundary. The revelation transformed the dynamic on the range instantaneously. Where moments before Volkov had been invisible, just another support person performing mundane duties, she now commanded the subtle deference that warriors showed to proven killers. The SEALs studied her with new appreciation, recognizing a colleague they had previously overlooked. Master Chief Petty Officer James Reaper Sullivan approached from the range control tower where he had been observing the morning's qualifications. His weathered face bore the scars of 3 decades in special operations, and his reputation preceded him through every military installation on the East Coast. When Reaper Sullivan took notice, everyone else paid attention. "Staff Sergeant," he said formally, his voice carrying the gravitas of ultimate authority on the range. "I've been watching from the tower. That was exceptional marksmanship." Volkov straightened imperceptibly, recognizing both the compliment and the potential complications it represented. Exceptional performance drew attention, and attention led to questions she preferred to avoid. Her current assignment suited her perfectly, anonymous, routine, and blissfully free from the life-or-death decisions that had defined her previous deployments. "Thank you, Master Chief," she replied neutrally, attempting to deflect further inquiry. Sullivan wasn't deterred by her reluctance. He had spent his career identifying and developing exceptional talent, and what he had witnessed transcended normal skill parameters. The casual precision with which she had corrected Hayes's rifle spoke to experience that belonged in specialized units, not logistics departments. "We've got a problem," he said bluntly. "Advanced Urban Combat Corps starts next week. 24 of the Navy's best snipers, and we're short one instructor." His eyes held hers with unmistakable intent. Combat town, unknown distances, moving targets, time pressure. The kind of shooting that separates professionals from pretenders. The invitation hung in the air like morning fog. Around them, the assembled SEALs waited for her response, understanding that they were witnessing something significant. Master Chief Sullivan didn't extend teaching opportunities lightly, and his courses were legendary throughout special operations communities. "I'm not qualified to instruct Navy personnel," Volkov replied carefully. "I'm Air Force logistics. Different training, different protocols." "Bullshit," Sullivan said with the directness that senior enlisted men employed when cutting through bureaucratic nonsense. "I've been training snipers for 28 years. I know what combat-tested marksmanship looks like, and I just watched you demonstrate it." Hayes nodded agreement, his earlier skepticism completely evaporated. 3 shots, 800 meters, quarter-inch group with an unfamiliar weapon. That's not luck, that's professional-level precision fire. The morning sun climbed higher, burning off the Virginia humidity and casting sharp shadows across the range. In the distance, other training activities continued, Marines conducting combat fitness tests, Army Rangers practicing small unit tactics, Air Force security forces running K-9 drills. But at firing position 7, time seemed suspended as an elite military community waited for one woman's decision. Volkov looked across the faces surrounding her, reading the mixture of respect, curiosity, and professional hunger for knowledge that defined all serious warriors. These men had dedicated their lives to perfecting the art of precision violence, and they recognized mastery regardless of the uniform that contained it. The weight of expectation pressed against Volkov like summer heat. She had spent 18 months carefully constructing a new identity, the competent but unremarkable logistics specialist who processed ammunition requisitions and maintained range equipment. It was a peaceful existence that allowed her to serve without the crushing responsibility of holding other people's lives in her hands. But Master Chief Sullivan wasn't offering her an escape route. "The course runs 2 weeks," he continued, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to having his requests fulfilled. "Urban environment, precision fire under stress, unknown distance targets. These operators need someone who understands what it's like when missing means your teammates die." The phrase hit Volkov like a physical blow. She closed her eyes briefly, fighting against memories that belonged to different places, different wars. Forward Operating Base Chapman, where every shot mattered because American lives hung in the balance. The weight of a rifle scope against her cheek as she tracked insurgent movements through the streets of Coast. The mathematical certainty of physics applied through precisely crafted ammunition. Rodriguez stepped closer, his voice respectful but insistent. "We've all heard stories about female snipers in Afghanistan, Marine Corps, Army, some Air Force units running classified operations. Most of it was rumor, but—" he gestured toward the target that still bore evidence of her impossible accuracy. "This isn't rumor." Hayes checked his watch, aware that the morning qualification session had officially ended, but nobody wanted to leave without resolution. "Whatever happened over there, whatever you did, it matters here. These guys are rotating back to combat zones where precision fire saves lives." Volkov studied the assembled faces, reading the professional hunger that defined all elite warriors. They weren't asking for war stories or classified details. They were asking her to share knowledge that might keep them alive when bullets started flying in earnest. "I never went through formal sniper school," she said quietly, her admission carrying the weight of technical honesty. "Everything I learned came from operational necessity, trial by fire with real consequences for failure." Sullivan nodded understanding. Some of the best marksmen in military history had learned their craft through combat rather than classroom instruction. Formal training provided foundation, but war taught refinement that no school could replicate. "That's exactly what these operators need," he replied. "Someone who learned to shoot when missing meant mission failure. Someone who understands the difference between range performance and combat effectiveness." The morning air carried the distant sound of helicopters conducting training flights, their rotors beating steady rhythms across the Virginia landscape. Somewhere beyond the range, America's military machine continued its endless preparation for conflicts that might never come or might explode without warning. Volkov made her decision with the same analytical precision she applied to everything else. The mathematics were simple. Her knowledge could increase survival probability for operators who would face similar challenges. Personal comfort was irrelevant when weighed against potential American casualties. 2 weeks only," she said finally. "After that, I return to logistics duties." Sullivan's weathered face split into something resembling a smile. "Outstanding, Staff Sergeant. Welcome to the Advanced Urban Combat Course. The Combat Town training facility sprawled across 40 acres of constructed reality, a meticulously crafted urban environment designed to replicate the complexities of modern warfare. Multi-story buildings, narrow alleyways, rooftop positions, and civilian obstacles created a three-dimensional puzzle that challenged even the most experienced operators. It was here that America's elite warriors learned to fight in the concrete jungles that defined 21st century conflict. Volkov arrived at dawn on Monday morning, her administrative uniform replaced by woodland camouflage and tactical equipment that transformed her back into something recognizable as a combat veteran. The change was subtle but profound. Her posture shifted, her movements became more economical, and her eyes constantly scanned for threats that didn't exist on American training ranges. 24 Navy SEALs waited in the briefing room, their collective experience representing hundreds of combat deployments across every major conflict zone of the past 2 decades. They studied their unexpected instructor with professional curiosity, still processing the events from the rifle range that had led to this unprecedented situation. Master Chief Sullivan called the room to attention with military precision. "Gentlemen, Staff Sergeant Volkov will be conducting precision fire instruction for the next 2 weeks. She brings combat experience from Afghanistan and demonstrated marksmanship that exceeds anything I've seen in 28 years of training snipers." Volkov stepped forward, feeling the weight of scrutiny from some of the military's most elite warriors. Public speaking had never been her strength. She preferred the solitary precision of long-range shooting to the complexity of human interaction. But these men deserved her best effort. "I'm not here to teach you how to shoot," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the room despite her obvious nervousness. "You already know how to shoot. I'm here to teach you how to kill when the entire mission depends on one bullet fired under the worst possible conditions." The distinction resonated through the room. Every SEAL present had completed advanced marksmanship training, but combat effectiveness transcended range scores and qualification standards. It required understanding of wind, weather, stress, fatigue, and the 100 variables that separated training from warfare. "Combat Town presents unique challenges," she continued, gaining confidence as she entered familiar territory. "Urban environments create wind tunnels that deflect bullets unpredictably. Glass windows reflect muzzle flashes. Concrete surfaces produce ricochets that can compromise your position. Moving vehicles change engagement geometry constantly." She activated the room's projection system, displaying satellite imagery of typical Middle Eastern urban environments. The photographs showed the chaotic reality of modern warfare: narrow streets choked with civilian traffic, multi-story buildings providing countless sniper positions, and civilian populations that complicated every tactical decision. In places like Khost, Kandahar, and Fallujah, precision fire often determines mission success or failure. You might have one shot at a high-value target before they disappear into civilian populations. You might need to neutralize an IED emplacer without hitting the children playing nearby. You might need to provide overwatch for extraction teams while insurgents close from multiple directions. The room remained silent, every operator focused on intelligence that might preserve their lives during future deployments. This wasn't theoretical instruction from military manuals. This was practical knowledge earned through actual combat experience. The first practical exercise began at 0800 hours in Combat Town's most challenging sector, a recreation of Middle Eastern urban architecture complete with multi-story buildings, narrow alleyways, and realistic civilian obstacles. Volkov had spent the previous evening studying the facility's layout, identifying sniper positions, and calculating firing solutions that would challenge even experienced marksmen. "Your target is a confirmed insurgent leader," she announced to the assembled SEALs, her voice carrying across the morning air. "Intelligence indicates he'll appear somewhere in this sector between now and 1000 hours. You have one shot before he disappears into the civilian population. The scenario was deliberately vague, forcing operators to demonstrate initiative and tactical thinking rather than following prescribed procedures. Real combat rarely provided detailed intelligence or predictable enemy behavior. Successful snipers learned to adapt quickly to changing conditions. Petty Officer Rodriguez moved into an overwatch position atop a three-story building. His Mk-11 rifle equipped with advanced optics and a suppressor to minimize signature. From his elevated position, he commanded excellent fields of fire across the central plaza, where intelligence suggested the target might appear. Meanwhile, Hayes established a ground-level position in a simulated marketplace, using civilian obstacles for concealment while maintaining clear shooting lanes toward potential target areas. His approach emphasized close-range precision and rapid engagement capability. Volkov observed both positions through high-powered binoculars, evaluating their tactical choices and identifying potential improvements. Each operator brought different strengths and limitations to the challenge, and her job was maximizing their effectiveness while minimizing vulnerabilities. "Rodriguez," she transmitted through tactical radio, "your position provides excellent overwatch, but consider wind effects at that altitude. Urban heat creates thermal columns that deflect bullets unpredictably." "Copy," Rodriguez replied, adjusting his scope's windage settings based on her guidance. "Hayes, your concealment is outstanding, but watch for ricochet surfaces. Those concrete walls can redirect bullets in unexpected directions." The morning progressed with methodical precision, as both operators refined their positions and prepared for the target's appearance. Volkov provided constant guidance, sharing knowledge earned through actual combat experience, where similar decisions had determined mission success or failure. At 0947, a role player appeared in the central plaza, moving with the cautious awareness of someone expecting danger. Both snipers identified the target simultaneously, their crosshairs tracking movement through the simulated crowd of civilian mannequins. "I have the shot," Rodriguez transmitted, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Negative," Hayes responded. "Civilian obstruction from your angle, I have clear fire." The exchange demonstrated split-second decision-making that characterized real combat operations. Multiple snipers often engaged the same target, requiring instant coordination to prevent mission compromise or friendly fire incidents. "Take the shot, Hayes," Volkov ordered, evaluating the tactical geometry from her observation position. Hayes's rifle spoke once, the suppressed report barely audible across the urban environment. 800 meters away, the target dropped instantly, struck center mass by precision fire that had threaded between civilian obstacles. "Outstanding shot," Volkov transmitted. "Mission complete." The afternoon session introduced complexity that pushed even experienced operators beyond their comfort zones. Volkov had designed a scenario that replicated the chaotic reality of urban warfare, where precision fire intersected with civilian protection and time pressure that left no margin for error. "Multiple targets, unknown sequence," she announced from the observation tower. "High-value individuals will appear at different locations throughout the sector. Some are confirmed hostiles, others are civilians. You must identify, prioritize, and engage targets while minimizing collateral damage." The challenge transcended marksmanship skills, requiring tactical judgment that separated competent shooters from elite snipers. In actual combat, misidentification could result in civilian casualties that compromised entire military operations and potentially sparked international incidents. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Tombstone, Hayes repositioned to a concealed location within a simulated apartment building, his rifle equipped with variable power optics that allowed rapid transition between close and long-range engagements. His years of combat experience had taught him that urban warfare demanded flexibility above all other qualities. Across the sector, Petty Officer Danny Shark Rodriguez established overwatch from a water tower that provided commanding fields of fire but limited mobility if positions became compromised. His approach emphasized maximum standoff distance and multiple escape routes. Both operators maintained constant communication with Volkov, who served as tactical coordinator and intelligence analyst. Her role replicated the support structure that existed during actual combat operations, where snipers rarely operated in complete isolation. First target appearing, grid reference 274318, she transmitted, using military coordinate systems that allowed precise target designation without revealing specific locations to potential enemy listeners. Through their scopes, both snipers observed a figure moving through the simulated marketplace. The individual carried what appeared to be an automatic weapon, but urban environments created visual deceptions that could transform innocent objects into apparent threats. Positive identification required, Volkov continued. Rules of engagement specify confirmed hostile intent before weapons release. Hayes studied the target through maximum magnification, noting details that would determine the legitimacy of lethal force. The figure's movement patterns, weapon handling, and interaction with civilian role players provided crucial intelligence for making split-second decisions. Target is carrying an AK pattern rifle, Hayes reported. Movement suggests tactical awareness, no interaction with civilians. Rodriguez, can you confirm? Volkov asked, requiring secondary verification before authorizing engagement. Confirmed hostile posture, Rodriguez replied after careful observation. Weapon at ready position, avoiding civilian contact. The positive identification process consumed precious seconds, but civilian protection required methodical verification even under time pressure. Volkov had witnessed the consequences of hasty targeting decisions during her Afghanistan deployments, where mistaken identity could destabilize entire regions. Cleared hot, she transmitted, authorizing lethal force against a confirmed threat. Hayes fired first, his bullet striking the target's center mass at 600 meters range. The precision fire eliminated the threat instantly while maintaining sufficient accuracy to avoid civilian casualties in the crowded environment. Target down, no collateral damage, Rodriguez confirmed through his scope. Outstanding engagement, Volkov responded. Next target inbound. As the training progressed through its second week, the relationship between instructor and students evolved beyond mere professional courtesy. The SEALs had initially approached Volkov with polite skepticism, acknowledging her demonstrated marksmanship, while remaining uncertain about her tactical knowledge and combat experience. But daily exposure to her expertise gradually transformed skepticism into genuine respect. Her teaching methodology differed fundamentally from traditional military instruction. Rather than following prescribed curricula or emphasizing standardized procedures, she adapted each lesson to exploit individual strengths while addressing specific weaknesses. Hayes received guidance on urban wind reading. Rodriguez learned techniques for rapid target identification, and each operator discovered capabilities they hadn't realized they possessed. More significantly, her instruction transcended technical skill development. She taught the psychology of precision fire under stress, the mental disciplines required for consistent performance when lives hung in the balance, and the ethical frameworks that governed lethal force decisions in complex environments. Shooting is the easy part, she explained during a break between exercises. Any competent marksman can hit targets on a range. Combat effectiveness requires making correct decisions when you're exhausted, scared, and operating with incomplete information. The observation resonated with every SEAL present. They had all experienced the disorientation that accompanied actual combat, the way familiar skills became unreliable under extreme stress, how carefully planned operations dissolved into chaos that demanded improvisation and adaptation. Master Chief Sullivan observed the training evolution from the command post, noting the improvement in both individual performance and team coordination. His experienced eye recognized transformation that transcended normal skill development. These operators were internalizing lessons that would preserve their lives during future deployments. "She's something special," he commented to his assistant instructor, Chief Petty Officer Kevin "Blackjack" Morrison. 28 years training snipers, and I've never seen anyone connect with students like this." Morrison nodded agreement, studying telemetry data that documented performance improvements across all measured parameters. Accuracy had increased, engagement times had decreased, and decision-making had become more consistent under stress. But the most significant change was intangible, a confidence that came from learning advanced techniques from someone who had applied them successfully in actual combat. On the range, Volkov worked individually with Petty Officer First Class Tommy "Ghost" Williams, whose natural marksmanship ability was undermined by inconsistent breathing technique under pressure. Rather than prescribing generic solutions, she identified his specific physiological responses to stress and developed customized methods for maintaining consistency. "Your heart rate spikes just before firing," she observed, monitoring his pulse through tactical sensors. "That's normal under stress, but you're fighting it instead of accommodating it. Let me show you a technique that works with your body's reactions rather than against them." Williams had struggled with precision fire qualification for months, his scores fluctuating unpredictably despite excellent fundamental skills. Traditional instruction had focused on eliminating his stress responses, but Volkov's approach acknowledged physiological reality and developed techniques that maintained accuracy regardless of elevated heart rate. After 30 minutes of individualized coaching, Williams fired a perfect score on a challenging urban course that had previously frustrated his best efforts. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. The final exercise of Advanced Urban Combat course tested everything the SEALs had learned during 2 intensive weeks of instruction. Volkov had designed a comprehensive scenario that replicated the complexity and stress of actual combat operations, combining precision marksmanship with tactical coordination and split-second decision-making under extreme time pressure. "Operation Red Dawn," she announced from the command post, using military terminology that immediately captured everyone's attention. High-value target elimination in a contested urban environment. Multiple hostiles, civilian presence, limited ammunition, and extraction under fire. The scenario parameters pushed every operator beyond normal comfort zones. They would have to demonstrate individual marksmanship excellence while maintaining team coordination and civilian protection standards. Mission success required perfect execution of techniques they had practiced extensively, but never applied under such comprehensive pressure. Hayes, Rodriguez, and Williams formed the primary sniper team, establishing positions throughout Combat Town's most challenging sector. Their mission was eliminating 3 specific targets while avoiding civilian casualties and maintaining communication discipline that prevented position compromise. Supporting elements included reconnaissance teams, communications specialists, and quick reaction forces that would extract the snipers once their mission was complete. The integrated operation replicated the complexity of actual special operations, where success depended on seamless coordination between multiple specialized units. "Target 1 is a bomb maker," Volkov briefed from her observation position. "Intelligence indicates he'll appear in the marketplace between 1400 and 1430 hours. Positive identification required before engagement." The first phase tested individual skills under time pressure. Hayes moved into an overwatch position that provided excellent fields of fire, but required a complex shot through multiple civilian obstacles. His success would depend on reading urban wind patterns and calculating trajectory solutions that accounted for building interference. Rodriguez established close-range coverage in the marketplace itself, using civilian disguise to blend with role players while maintaining immediate access to precision weapons. His position offered guaranteed target acquisition, but eliminated escape routes if cover was blown. Williams provided long-range overwatch from the tallest building in the sector, his advanced optics and match-grade ammunition enabling extreme-distance shots that other team members couldn't attempt. His role emphasized technical precision over tactical flexibility. Multiple civilian vehicles in the area, Volkov reported, adding complexity that reflected real-world conditions. Vehicle movement may obstruct shooting lanes or provide concealment for targets. The dynamic environment required constant adaptation as conditions changed throughout the exercise. Snipers had to maintain situational awareness while focusing on technical shot preparation, balancing competing demands that characterized actual combat operations. At 1427, the first target appeared exactly as intelligence had predicted. Role players immediately surrounding him with civilian obstacles that complicated identification and engagement geometry. "I have visual," Hayes transmitted quietly, confirming target identification. Through his scope, Hayes studied the individual's movement patterns, weapon handling, and interaction with civilian role players. The careful verification process consumed precious time, but prevented potentially catastrophic misidentification. "Target confirmed," Rodriguez added from his marketplace position. "Clear shot available." "Take it," Volkov authorized. Rodriguez fired once, his suppressed weapon barely audible above marketplace noise. 800 meters away, the target dropped instantly. The second phase of Operation Red Dawn introduced complications that tested tactical coordination under extreme stress. Intelligence reported that the remaining two targets had become aware of military presence and were actively evading capture while preparing retaliatory attacks against civilian populations. "Target 2 is mobile," Volkov transmitted from her observation post, "moving between buildings in the southern sector, approximately 400 meters from your position, Rodriguez." The pursuit phase required snipers to reposition, while maintaining communications security and avoiding detection by role players portraying hostile surveillance teams. Urban warfare demanded constant movement, because static positions became death traps once enemy forces identified their locations. Hayes moved through the building complex using techniques Volkov had taught for maintaining concealment in built-up areas. His route avoided predictable pathways while preserving clear shooting lanes toward areas where the target might appear. Each movement was calculated to minimize exposure while maximizing tactical advantage. Williams maintained overwatch from his elevated position, his scope scanning rooftops and upper-story windows where hostile snipers might establish counterpositions. Long-range precision fire provided critical protection for ground elements, but it also made him the highest priority target for enemy forces. "Contact," Williams transmitted urgently. "Hostile sniper northeast building, range 800 meters." The engagement escalated instantly from hunting to being hunted. Enemy marksmen had identified American positions and were attempting to eliminate the sniper team before they could complete their mission. Survival now depended on techniques that transcended marksmanship, tactical movement, position selection, and coordination under direct fire. "Williams, take the shot," Volkov ordered, recognizing that counter-sniper operations required immediate response. Williams fired without hesitation, his bullet crossing 800 meters of urban landscape to strike the hostile sniper with precision that saved American lives. The engagement demonstrated skills that belonged in the highest echelons of military marksmanship. Target down, Williams confirmed. Area clear. But the enemy response had compromised team positions and accelerated the timeline for mission completion. Intelligence indicated that remaining targets were preparing to escape the area, potentially taking valuable information that could compromise future operations. Time sensitive, Volkov announced. Target 2 moving to extraction point. This is your last opportunity for engagement. Hayes spotted movement in a narrow alleyway between buildings, identifying the target through brief glimpses as he moved between concealment positions. The shot would require threading bullets between civilian obstacles while accounting for target movement and limited visibility. "I have him," Hayes transmitted, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Moving target, partial concealment, 300 meters." The engagement geometry was complex. Hayes would have to fire through a gap between buildings that provided barely enough space for bullet passage while calculating lead time for a moving target. Miss by inches, and the mission failed permanently. Hayes controlled his breathing and found the natural respiratory pause that preceded all precision shots. His crosshairs tracked the target's movement, calculating speed and direction while compensating for wind effects and distance. The rifle fired once, its report echoing through the urban landscape. "Target down," Rodriguez confirmed from his observation position. "Clean hit, no collateral damage." 2 targets eliminated, 1 remaining. The mission continued. The final phase of Operation Red Dawn pushed the SEAL team into territory that few military exercises ever explored: the intersection of precision marksmanship, tactical coordination, and ethical decision-making under extreme duress. Target 3 represented the most challenging scenario Volkov could devise, testing not only technical skills, but the moral framework that governed lethal force in complex environments. "Target 3 is using human shields," she announced, her voice carrying the weight of scenarios she had faced during actual combat deployments. "High-value individual surrounded by civilians, including children. Mission success requires his elimination without collateral damage." The ethical complexity transcended normal training parameters. Every SEAL present understood that such situations existed in actual combat zones, where military necessity conflicted with humanitarian concerns. Success required techniques that preserved civilian lives while accomplishing military objectives. Hayes repositioned to a location that provided angular separation between the target and surrounding civilians. His new position offered a challenging shot through architectural obstacles, but it eliminated the risk of bullet overpenetration that might harm innocent people. Rodriguez moved closer to the target area, using civilian disguise to gather intelligence about the situation's dynamics. His proximity provided detailed observation, but increased personal risk if his identity was discovered by hostile forces. Williams maintained long-range overwatch, his advanced optics providing detailed target analysis that ground elements couldn't obtain from their positions. His role emphasized intelligence gathering rather than direct engagement, but he remained prepared for precision fire if opportunities presented themselves. "Target is using a child as a shield," Rodriguez reported quietly, his voice carrying.